Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is League on Lock. My name is Eric. Thanks for hanging out, as always. And things are getting absolutely insane in the offseason. And it's not just for free agent signings. It is the drama and all the ensuing issues that have stemmed out of Griffin and the debacle that was CvMax being fired right before the World Championship. We know, if you've been following this story, there was all kinds of behind-the-scenes action going on. CvMax eventually would go on his stream and kind of air all that dirty laundry that had been going on within the organization. Well, Riot recently announced that Cho, who is the upper management part of Griffin that kind of dealt with the Kanavi contract, which was terrible and was part for an overall terrible team atmosphere, is banned indefinitely. But also CvMax, who just got his new gig as the head coach of Dragon X, well, he is also banned indefinitely, not just from the LCK, but all Riot events. That includes anything outside of Korea. So something has to be going on here, and we now know that CvMax got this ban from physical and verbal abuse that he was putting out towards players. And now, initially, when you hear that, there's a bit of a conspiracy theory. It seemed like his players loved him, and we know that Cho and the rest of management of Griffin seemed to kind of have it out for him. But as we have recently learned, that is not the case whatsoever. You had a couple of former players. You had Rather, who used to be the mid laner before Chovy, Tarzan, and Sword, as well as the assistant coach Chaos, all speak in an interview with Invin, and their stories all aligned, and they basically spoke to a lot of the physical and even more so some terrible verbal abuse that CvMax did on the majority of players. I know Tarzan specifically said he never was abused in any way, verbally or physically, by him, but he saw it happen to a lot of his players, and he knew, or a lot of his teammates, and he knew that that would definitely affect their mental outside of the game, in the game, just kind of generally living. This goes above and beyond just actually playing League of Legends, but this is their actual lifestyle. And you heard all three players say that they were hesitant to even do this interview with Invin at all because of the backlash that they would receive. We know that CvMax basically called out Sword and Viper for kind of speaking against him in any way and saying that they were dividing the entire team. So all of these players were very hesitant and a little bit afraid to even speak out against all these actions that CvMax committed against his players, and they did it. And they were happy that they did do it to shed some light on this. I guess CvMax, because, and again, these players spoke to being afraid to even speak out against what CvMax was doing. And for somebody like Rather and most of these other players, CvMax was the first head coach that they ever had on a pro team. And we know that coaching staffs are historically a lot more strict in Korea than they are in North America or Europe. And that's a lot of the reasons why people spoke to why Korea was much better than all these other regions for so many years, is because of the strict infrastructure. But there is a fine line between strict coaching and just straight up verbally abusing your players on countless occasions. There were multiple instances and examples that Sword, Rather, and Tarzan were all drawing from where they witnessed or were the victim of said verbal abuse. So everyone has been Team CvMax, and he definitely did get done a little bit dirty by Cho and the rest of the upper management. But assuming that all these stories are true from the players, and there's no reason to believe that they wouldn't be, CvMax definitely was not an angel when he was on Griffin, and a lot of these things, if they are true, are definitely worthy of a suspension or ban of some kind. You can discuss whether or not it should be indefinite or a specific amount of time, but he definitely should be facing these repercussions. And now that leaves Dragon X without a head coach. You feel a little bit bad for Deft, because you've got to imagine he came to this team in hopes of having CvMax, who we've seen can be a solid coach when it comes to the on the Rift and in-game action, but it's the behind the scenes and the relationships with his players that obviously he has a lot to learn about. So Deft is now left without a head coach. Dragon X will have to find somebody else. And by the way, Griffin was also fined a substantial amount for their dealings with the Kanavi incident and everything. But this behind the scenes debacle with Griffin only gets crazier as the times go on here. But for now, both CvMax and Cho are banned indefinitely, suspended from any Riot events. There was also some legal action that was going on with Cloud9, not quite to the same serious extent of verbal or physical abuse, but Jack and the boys did give, way back in 2017, they gave some of their players, 7 players, minor stocks in the organization, which is against the Riot Code of Conduct, and eventually paperwork was submitted for Cloud9 about this and didn't really detail that they were doing this. Eventually Riot found out, and without Cloud9 ever telling them that they were doing this, well, that's going to result in at least a $175,000 fine going the way of Cloud9. It was the 5 starters, Smoothie as well, and Jensen before they left. They were all given some stock units in the Cloud9 organization as kind of a way to, I don't know what the actual salaries ended up being, but if it was taking away from their initial salaries and kind of substituting it with stock units, either way, on top of the $175,000 that Cloud9 will have to pay to Riot, they will also have to compensate the players in those financial gains that would have been lost or kind of rejigged into those stocks. So some of these guys will probably be getting paid, but this is interesting because it's against, again, the Riot rules to have a stake in ownership and be part of the team, which is something that they instituted, I think it was 2017. But now you have Team Solo Mid and Bjergsen, who is very clearly a part owner of Team Solo Mid. You can only imagine that Reginald and Bjergsen did their due diligence and spoke to Riot about kind of implementing this change, because at least for now, there's been no repercussions for them doing that. And obviously they had a full announcement video. We're very transparent about it. So obviously they went about those things the right way, whereas Cloud9 kind of did it in the shadows, and that is not a-okay for Riot. So they come down with the ban hammer, or the fine hammer in this case. That's all the time today for League Unlocked. My name's Eric. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll catch you next time.